Hey guys, all right, welcome. It's a quick. This is kind of like a Workday Wednesday podcast. I missed yesterday's podcast. My apologies for that. I had to take care of some business, so my apologies. But today is Wednesday, I believe it is. It's Wednesday. Yeah, it's Wednesday the 19th. So wanted to do a quick live podcast. If you're at work, listen along, and if you're not at work, join in on the fun, on the live chat if you can. But it's Wednesday, and I wanted to talk about big phones. Big phones. I've got a lot of big phones, and I think most people now have a standard for big phones. This is kind of something that, we've gotten used to. We thought at one point that we would hate big phones or just really despise big phones. I remember people laughed at very large phones. Now, though, it's kind of a standard. I think it's becoming a standard. And when I say big phones, I mean, some people still feel like 5 inches is a big phone. I know plenty of people who feel like 5 inches is huge. It's too big. 4.7 for that matter. But in all actuality, I think the screen size thing is coming around, and people are starting to get used to it, and people are wanting the more real estate. They want it. There's a huge advantage to having a very big screen on your phone. Now, if you're fortunate enough to get a phone with a big screen that's not very big in size, that's a huge plus. That's a great thing. That's a great purchase. If you can find a phone that has a small footprint but has a very big screen, you should probably grab it. Now, not just big screens, but big screens out there that won't hurt us, won't hurt our pockets. That's something to be found. That's something that we're going to have to try to search for. And it's going to take some time. Being able to get a big phone out there that you don't have a big footprint, that's going to be tough. But right now, it looks like Samsung and LG have 2 phones out there that have pretty big. Well, Samsung is probably the biggest screen. They've got a 6.3 inch or 6.2 inch or something like that for the S8 Plus, and it's got a very small footprint. And in real world, yes, we would love that, but the way the S8 Plus and the S8 are built, they're super narrow, and I think a lot of people probably don't really like that. Some people do because it's easy on the hand, but I prefer. And we were actually talking about this kind of in my Smartphone Conversations Telegram group about. The screen ratio, shout out to Chris. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining on this Workday Wednesday podcast. The screen ratio of a device now, it's amazing. Isn't it amazing how technology has taken us from one step to the next? Like, the industry is going in a certain direction, and this is just where it's going. And we're just kind of following along blindly, to be honest. Even though we're interested in technology, we're all just kind of following along. We don't really know what's coming. We're following rumors and things like that. But look at how the industry has switched. Now, people really despised of big screen phones until the Galaxy Note line came out. That was considered a huge that was so big of a change that the industry got shaken up so bad that people just didn't know what to do. They had no clue as to what to do. So people said, I got to try this out. I got to see what the fuss is about. And that did it. Now, even though Samsung probably wasn't the first company to date to have the first big screen phone, they kind of get the credit for it because they put it on the map. They made it cool to have a big phone. I guess that's the way that I could say it. Samsung made it really cool to have this big, ginormous screen in your hand. And they did it right. They started off with the Note line. Even though their other phones had 4-inch screens and things like that, that's a big screen back then, but Samsung did it with the Note line. I still say that they put it on the map. I say that there may have been other manufacturers doing big screens, but Samsung put it on the map, I say. And I respect you if you disagree with that, but I think Samsung put it on the map. That's what I think. And I feel like current day, fast forward to today, Samsung is losing the big screen battle. Here's why. You've got companies like Sony with the Xperia line bringing out massive phones. Like the screens are 6 inches and they're beautiful. They're not quad HD and all this, but they're beautiful. The edge-to-edge displays on them are freaking gorgeous, and there's no denying that. I mean, at least in where I sit, Sony is making some beautiful displays. They're even doing 4K displays. Samsung's not even there yet. But where Samsung is losing at in this battle is pricing. Samsung can no longer convince people wholeheartedly that their phones are worth the price when it comes to the big screen. And then now they don't even have very, very, very big screens out there. They have, they're sticking to the, right now they have the 6.3 or whatever it is, but that's the biggest. But look at how they had to implement that. Look at how they did it. They had to put it into a body where the form factor is so narrow, it's almost uncomfortable to use. Does that make sense? It's pretty amazing that the screen, the way they did it, I applaud them for it, but the price tag that comes along with it just isn't worth it. For a person that wants a big screen, now we're talking about the average consumer, when they go out and they see phones now with big screens, they're intrigued by it. They want to pick it up and buy it because they want that real estate. They want to be able to watch a video of their granddaughter, their grandson, with on this huge screen, and it looks amazing, right? So Sony is a company that's doing that. Sony has the Xperia line, and they have big screens, just ginormous, but they're beautiful. Another company that I talked about on Twitter just a little while ago is ZTE. Now, I think ZTE might be winning the price wars when it comes to big screen phones. I think that they're winning because they're bringing out big screen phones for $100, and these aren't bad phones for the average consumer. They're actually pretty decent. I mean, $100 price tag. Hey, Art Dog, how you doing? Thanks for joining in for this Wednesday Workday podcast. But talking about ZTE, I think ZTE is winning the price war when it comes to big screens, small price. They may not be bringing out the smallest devices in a footprint, but they're bringing out 6-inch phones that have beautiful displays, and they're very, very affordable. And they can perform at a level that the average consumer will not be unhappy with. I mean, come on. Sony phones cost a little bit more than ZTE devices. They cost a little bit more. Little bit more. So, and I'm talking about hundreds of dollars more. they're up there. They're a couple $100 more. Now you have to wait and grab a Sony device on sale. That will probably be the best way to come up on that. Sony, other manufacturers do sell Sony devices at a lower cost after a while. So what you have to consider is Sony products. When comparing Sony and ZTE, and I'll get to some other manufacturers as well that I feel like bring out very good phones and don't hurt your pocket. But when you compare Sony and ZTE, Sony has the better displays, but ZTE has fantastic displays too. But you're paying a little bit more. You're paying like double the cost or almost triple the cost sometimes to get that display, and you're also not getting higher processors. It's kind of a level playing field. It's just Sony displays are a little bit better than the ZTE displays that I have, and that's just what it is. But the fact that the ZTE phones come at such a low price point to begin with, you don't even notice. You can't even you weed out those things that you feel like might be a hindrance to you. which it won't because the ZTE displays are fantastic. The Z Max Pro has one of the best displays in that budget, pocket-friendly area. Yeah, they're doing that. That's why I said ZTE is winning in the pocket-friendly big screen. They're just kind of showing out. They just released another phone on AT&T. It's a huge big screen phone for $100. This is what they're getting down with. ZTE is a successful company, but some people might not see it that way because they don't see them bringing out the Axon 8 or whatever they want. But the fact is, ZTE is doing a fantastic job with bringing out these big phones, low prices, great performers. I mean, there are going to be people out there who have an issue with the Z Max Pro or Blade X Max, but it's not. Think about what happens now. Look at how the complaints are for the quote-unquote pocket-friendly phones compared to the quote-unquote flagship devices. Look at how many complaints people are making about because they spent almost $1,000, but the people that have the Z Max Pro and everything, the complaints are minimum at best. They are out there. I'm not making excuses. There are complaints out there on these phones from ZTE and Sony and all these other companies, but they're nowhere near as big a complaint as the other people spending $500, $600, $700, $800 because those people are thinking about their money. People who complain about the Z Max, the ZTE devices at this moment, and saying that this phone is crap. You need to lower your standards or have more realistic standards about what you're purchasing. Some people most people want a $200 flagship. It's just probably not going to happen. They're not going to give you a quad HD display, 8 gigs of RAM. That's not going to happen. So that is why we have companies in place like Sony, ZTE, Xiaomi. Xiaomi is another one. I'll get onto that. So I want to read a comment here from some of these guys in the live chat. And if you're joining me live for this Wednesday Workday podcast, I appreciate it. I just wanted to talk about big phones for a little bit and have you listen along while you're working. So Chris says, that's why I love unlocked phones. Some days I want a big screen and some days I need a comment. Exactly. Some days, see, that's the great thing about having, in that area, that's where Sony is kind of winning when you compare them to ZTE. ZTE doesn't have any unlocked big phones. They're capitalizing with the carriers and they're playing it smart and they're playing it safe. We're going to sell a boatload of these phones to the carriers right now. And this is just what it is. Hey, they're doing their thing. They're getting paid. They're doing it the way they want to do it. And they're still capitalizing on it. Some people may say the Z Max phones are crap. But I can tell you 90 to 99% or 90 to 100%, maybe a 90% ratio of people love the Z Max line. And I say the Z Max line because you've got the Blade X Max, the X, the Max XL. All these different phones are all in that same arena. And they're doing fantastic, contrary to what you might believe or hear on the internet. You don't see very many blogs or these big blogs like Pocket Now and Android Authority. You don't see these guys really covering those phones. Why wouldn't they? I don't understand that. I mean, I don't understand why they would not cover something that's going to be good for the consumer. So our dog says, hey, shout out to Mark. I appreciate you joining in. Our dog says, pretty interesting since my latest phones are all under 5.5. Yeah, our dog's phones are 5.1 or less in screen size. And, it happens. I have a wide variety of screen sizes. But that's the plus, like Chris was saying, the plus of living unlocked is that you can pretty much change when you want to change. That's the great part about it. And I do go through that phase when I just really need a small phone. Sometimes when I'm traveling, and it depends on where I'm going, I will take a phone that's like 5 inches or less or no more than 5.5. And that's not small, but 5.5 inch screen now can be small because, look at the G6. I mean, it's a 5.7 or something like that. It's got a small footprint. Mark says, I love my Nexus 6. But I'm all about the form factor, Samsung and LG with the new 18:9 ratio. The 18:9 ratio, and again, thanks for those who are just coming in and commenting, for if you're just joining. The 18:9 ratio, we were kind of talking about this in the Telegram group, and I run a Smartphone Conversations Telegram group along with the Google Plus Smartphone Conversations community, which is private. and then I have smartphoneconversations.com. The 18:9 ratio, that is where the industry's going. You know, these guys, we were talking about it in the Telegram group. That's where the industry might be going, but it's not going there fast. And I think you're probably going to see that predominantly on flagship type device, phones that cost $500 or more. When in all actuality, you know what you're looking at there? You're pretty much just looking at a different piece of hardware. That's it. And the 18:9 ratio is nice, but if it's implemented like Samsung is doing it, Samsung did 18:5:9, which I don't like. It's too narrow. Over time, it becomes too narrow, and when I'm watching videos, it just doesn't feel right. So I have to switch back to a phone like the Z Max Pro or like the HTC Ultra, just a phone that's a big screen with a 16:9 ratio. That is what I prefer at the moment. Now that will change. That will change. But as of right now, I don't foresee the industry just switching over to all 18:9 screen ratio. It would shake up things too much, which means you, in a lot of cases, especially for Samsung, you're going to have to get a new case. You're going to have to deal with curved screens. That's just not what I'm into. I like LG's implementation of the 18:9 ratio. They kept a flat screen. They kept a traditional body, which makes it easier for screen protectors and things like that. That is where, if they're going to do it, that's where they need to be. Doing this curved screen thing is going to cause problems for consumers, because consumers are going to get frustrated with tempered glasses, cases. This is going to happen. It's going to happen. And I feel like if they try to do it that way, it's gonna go to a slow crawl, like smartwatches. Remember how smartwatches came? You remember when Bluetooth headphones first came out? The first Bluetooth headphone from Motorola was $199 for that little clip-on piece on your ear. Now Bluetooth headphones cost $5-6. You can get them in a gas station for $10. I mean, come on. The 18:9 ratio is going to go. It's going to take off. But I don't know if it's going to take off at the speed that some might think. I mean, I don't prefer the 18:9 ratio. I don't prefer it. I just don't prefer it. I would prefer to have a 16:9. And it's not that I'm not used to change. I just feel like until the developers can get support for everything that these companies are bringing out, it's not going to do well. Our dog says he noticed that the S8 tends to crop the screen. Okay, so you can he's right, you can crop the screen with the S8, but if you realize it cuts off, that's a bad, and you know, I've never heard too many people talk about it. I haven't even spoken of it very often, but when you watch, and this is a reason why people were saying, oh, I wouldn't get the G6. Remember when that whole little thing happened, that conversation was going on the internet? This happens. Conversations go on the internet, and you know, they die down eventually. But what happened is when the G6 came out and the S8 came out, people were saying, oh, I can't watch it on the G6 because you can't crop the screen. Well, you can crop the screen on the S8. However, you lose a portion of the video. It's just a zoom feature, folks. It's a zoom feature. Unlike Apple products, when they implemented it, you can actually pinch to zoom an Apple video that you've recorded. And I think you can do that with other devices too, but the Samsung implementation of what they consider to be just the best solution for infinity display, I don't think it's not finished. And there'll be another generation of infinity displays, whatever they want to call it. It's basically 18:5:9. There will be more iterations of this. And I think what they'll do, Samsung, I'll give them credit though. They take risks that other OEMs will wait 4 or 5 years to take. And most of Samsung's devices, they've taken a risk. If it flopped, it flopped. They went back to the drawing board and they did something else. However, with the S8 line, I think the S9 or whatever it's going to be called, S8.5, I don't know. Whatever the next generation of phone from Samsung is, it's going to have to capitalize on the failures of the S8, because there are some failures, and that's one of them. Having to crop the screen. Oh yeah, I can hit this button, but when you crop the screen, it takes off a portion of the video, and people never really talk about that. want to read a comment, skim through this comment here. Again, thanks to the guys who are joining me live to talk about big phones, man. This will be published on my YouTube channel, so if you're listening to this from the YouTube channel, I appreciate the support. Try to join me on podcasts. I'm still trying to getting things together. I did today's podcast because I was busy yesterday for Tuesday's podcast, and I had planned on talking about something completely different, but I was downstairs, I was doing some things, and I thought, I got to do a podcast. Wednesday, workday podcast, big phones. So Mark says, I have a Galaxy S8 Plus for work and a Moto G5 Plus for personal. Until the new Pixel. Shout out to the Pixel crew. I will be getting the Pixel as well. I've already got my funds set aside for that. I love the Galaxy S8 Plus, but it's a little awkward to hold and too big and too tall. I like LG's implementation more because it keeps the phone a little wider. That would be correct. I might have checked out the HTC U11 if it was on Verizon. They do have the HTC U11. You can purchase it directly from HTC, and it works with Verizon. They have one. It works with all carriers. But I do understand what you're saying. The S8 Plus, it's a unique. It's a unique form factor, but realistically, after you have it for a while, and after you get it for a while, I just recently got rid of my S8 Plus. And not that it was a bad phone, it's just that I wanted to move on. I just felt like all that money I had sitting on the table with the S8 Plus, and I didn't see the benefits of keeping it around. The S8, now the S8, if I would have gotten the S8 Plus for that promo that they had for $450, we could trade in a phone or whatever. Now they're doing buy one, get one free. If I could have gotten onto something like that, maybe I would have kept the S8 Plus. But I spent almost $900 for that phone, and I just feel like I wasn't winning. After a while, I just didn't feel like I was getting anything from it. I don't know. I have a ton of smartphones. I have, I'm blessed to be able to review all these things, but I still say that the S8 Plus, yes, they did a good job with it, but the implementation of it is better on the G6. Some people fault the G6 for, being having a Snapdragon 835. Those people are just people worried about specifications. The G6 is a fantastic device, and I think it's probably selling better than the S8 because, they're willing, the carriers want to give you all these special promos. Shout out to the carriers for doing the promos. It kind of surprises me that I see so many people cracking jokes about the G6 selling for $200 or $190. Why would you think that's funny, or why would you want to crack jokes about that when you're getting a great deal? Like, wouldn't you want the great deal? The S8, I think Samsung is showing us in their current, I think Samsung is showing us what their sales are like right now based on all these promos that they're doing immediately. How about when the iPhone comes out, there's probably going to be no promos. Hardly any, at least not, especially not buy one, get one free. I think the only carrier you might see that from is T-Mobile, because T-Mobile is trying to gain subscribers. So, I think Samsung, the way they did the big screen on the phone, it's eclectic, it's different, it's fresh, it's something new. They're calling it the Infinity Display. That sounds great. However, the price point behind the S8 Plus and the S8, if I would have gotten both of those phones, I got my S8, my small one, for $600 and something because they made a mistake on the website and they honored it. So I got mine for about $600, but still, you can get that phone for $300, or they have promos for you for low price, man. I was pretty upset, but first, people go in first, we don't get the promos. That's not what it is, but if they're going to give that deep of a discount right after the phone launches, something's going on with the sales figures. They're not selling as well as one might think. They're not doing as well as you might think. And, hey, that's on them. I want them to sell their phones. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. They can afford to give out some promos. But the G6 went on sale for, what was it, $599 or $699? And immediately it went on sale. And it's now $500 permanently pretty much through T-Mobile. And then the unlocked version comes out at $599, which is on promo too. Sprint, all these other companies are selling the phone at huge discounts. That is a plus for us. You know, that's a bonus to get that big screen in a small body. That's a huge plus. And I feel like going back to my original topic here, let's recap. I'm basically today talking about big screen phones that are implemented the right way and that are very affordable, pretty much. And right now, the only companies I see kind of doing that is ZTE, Sony, and Sony's pushing a line because their new XA Xperia 1 or whatever is Ultra. It costs $400. Don't see myself paying $400 for it. But then you've got a company like Xiaomi. Now, Xiaomi they've got some great phones that cost much less than some of the other phones that are in the price. I can grab the Xiaomi Mi Max 2 right now for under $400. I mean, think about what this phone is offering. A 6.4-inch display, 4 gigs of RAM, Snapdragon 625, 5,300 milliamp hour battery, and it's unlocked. It's unlocked. That's a huge plus. It's got an aluminum body, a fingerprint reader, a 12 megapixel camera that does 4K. It's a definite win. It's got 7.1.1. You know, 64 gigs onboard storage. There's different options. I think you can even get a 128 gig model. What? But this phone isn't coming to the US. That's the sad part. It's not coming to the US. And that's unfortunate because if Xiaomi were to bring their phones to the US, oh, guys better look out. Better look out. I mean, I've got a Xiaomi phone that was under $200, and it definitely the hardware, the performance is much better than several other phones that I purchased here in the US. But Xiaomi isn't trying to make a big splash in the US. They're doing so well wherever they are. I mean, you've got the Xiaomi Mi Mix. I mean, think about this now. 6.4-inch 1080p display. 6 gigs of RAM. 4,400 milliamp hour battery. Bezel-less. Xiaomi, and you can get that phone now for under $500. Xiaomi has a plethora of devices that will come to the US and probably shake things up for sure. They would shake it up. But they're, for some reason, you know, they decide we're staying out of the US market. We're not going to do it. Yeah, our dog says that Xiaomi is doing big things right now, and they're doing great, but they're not even trying. That's correct, because their quality and product speaks for itself. Yep. Their quality of product speaks for itself. They're bringing out all aluminum phones, and aluminium for some people. They're bringing out fingerprint readers on pretty much every device. They're just bringing out some fantastic phones that don't break the bank, have great screens, decent cameras. Hardware is just fantastic as far as I can see. It competes with the hardware in the US. It does. So of all the phones for big screens, I mean, let's be real here. 5.7, 5.5, they're big screen phones, but companies are packing them in smaller bodies so they don't appear to be in most cases. Those are some huge screens. A 5.5, a 5-inch screen is a big screen. A 4.7, because when you think about this is your phone. So if you're getting all screen, and the reason that people might think that it's not a big screen is because of what we're doing with our devices now. We're checking emails, we're watching videos, we're streaming, we're doing all these things that are basically for media consumption. We're watching Netflix. We're just doing everything on our devices, and we only realistically want to carry one device. But a lot of people don't want to say, okay, I'm going to get a 6-inch phone. They just don't want to do it for some reason, unless it has a small form factor. And right now, that's probably not going to happen. And like I said before, Samsung's implementation of it is cool, but they need to make some updates. So let me read a comment from Mark here. What's your opinion on on-screen or capacitive buttons? I prefer on-screen buttons because it makes the front of the phone look clean. Yeah, okay. I personally prefer on-screen buttons. If I had a preference, I would definitely always go with on-screen buttons. Reason being is capacitive buttons can break. They can fail you. So if companies are going to give us a huge screen phone, like right now, only plus to having a capacitive buttons is if you do have a big screen, you get all of that screen. But here's the flip side to that. I may have a big screen phone with on-screen buttons, but when I'm actually doing something for media consumption or in most cases you can hide them or they automatically go away. So I prefer on-screen buttons. That way I can have, if done right, a smaller, much smaller footprint on the actual hardware. You know, that's my take on that. I would definitely prefer on-screen buttons anywhere I could get them. You know, I just think it's the better way to go about it. And also another place where ZTE is winning is overseas. They're winning with the prepaid market over here. A lot of people laugh at ZTE, you know, because they keep bringing out devices that are $200 or they pretty much, some of them look the same. But some people are forgetting that ZTE is winning overseas. They're killing it. Have you ever heard of their Nubia line? I mean, come on. Those phones are premium devices. They're just not bringing them to the U.S. because they're doing so well over there. And that's their choice. But they've got a boatload of phones from the Nubia line that are worlds ahead of the devices that we're paying for over here. And then also, they don't even cost that much. But I think ZTE is playing it smart. I mean, and not just ZTE, Sony. Sony has, Sony, again, I think those are my top three. Sony, Xiaomi, and ZTE for having huge screen phones. Oh, and another one is Meizu. Because a lot of these places are not going to be in the U.S., but Sony has some big screen devices, and some of them even have dual front firing speakers. But if they don't have a dual front firing speaker, in my experience with Sony devices, that single bottom firing speaker is crazy loud. But Sony has the premium line, the L line, the XA line, the Z line, the X line, and in these different lines, they have a big phone. They've got a big premium phone. They've got a big mid-range phone. They even have a compact phone line. You know, I don't know. I think that some of these OEMs, you know, I often wonder why they don't bring the goodness to the U.S. They just don't. They don't bring it. You know, they don't bring the goodness. And when I say the goodness, as far as for me as a consumer, they don't bring that thunder that I want. You know, I would prefer to have a wider variety of devices in the U.S. where possible. Like Sony dropped the ball with the XC Premium. Here's how. They made a different model for the U.S. and they charged more money. So what are people going to do? They're going to buy the international version that costs less and you get the rest of the features. You get all the features, i.e. just the fingerprint reader. They took away the fingerprint reader for the U.S. I don't know what their logic behind this is, but that's a big screen phone, premium hardware, premium software. Sony software runs really good, almost as good as HTC software. Almost. Not quite there yet, but it does run smooth and almost looks the same too. But Sony, I guess the people in the back room make a decision and say, look, this is what we're going to do. We don't care whether they like it or not. This is what we're going to give them. Now, you would look at a company like Sony and you would say all their phones look alike. Okay, most of them do. But when something's right or not broken, if you will, just capitalize on it slowly, but give it a big enough change to where people feel like they're getting an upgrade. And I think it's where a lot of companies fall short, especially Apple. They keep bringing out the same device. And some would also argue that ZTE is bringing out the same device. But the difference for those two companies are the price point. You know, the price point of the ZTE products, I can expect to pay no more than $150 and get a huge screen and a phone that runs good, a decently loud speaker, Dolby audio. You know, it's just going to work for me. And it's a media consumption king. You know, battery life will be good because it'll have a big battery. On the other hand, Apple will bring out the same phone, slower incremental upgrades, and then, you know, they'll charge a boatload of money for it. I don't know. So Mark says, he wants to know if you can rewind while you're live. I don't know. You could try it. You can do it whenever it hits YouTube. Just try to rewind if you can. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this Wednesday Workday podcast, we're just talking about big phones and why we need them. But you can try to rewind the podcast. I don't know. I don't have any kind of features disabled in my podcast. You can download this podcast. You can do it. But test it out. Try it out and let me know. But big phones, we need them. And I don't see very many manufacturers besides Sony, ZTE, and Xiaomi doing large screened phones and continuously pushing them out. I used to look to Huawei, but their Plus phones are only like 5.7. They don't have very big screen phones. They've got the Mate 9, but the Mate 9 costs $599. And it's a premium phone, So it's not really a pocket-friendly phone. Huawei used to have the 4G Huawei Mate 2, I think it is, the 4G. That phone had a huge screen. It was a little bit really affordable at the time. And it did very well. From what I could tell, it did well. Now, Huawei does have the MediaPad line, but the MediaPad line isn't that affordable. It's it gets kind of pricey. That's their 7-inch basically tablet / phone, and there's different kinds. I have a MediaPad X1. I think I have the X1. You get basically a 7-inch phone, pretty much. That's what you're getting. You're getting a phone. You're getting a tablet with phone capabilities. But those devices are not very affordable as far as pocket goes. They hurt your pocket. You're gonna pay a premium price when it comes to buying one of those. So if you are, and they're not very big in size compared to today's market, believe it or not, they're actually pretty compact. But it's gonna be. It's not gonna be something that you can just grab it and throw it in your. So I can put it in my back pocket, but it's not gonna be something that you want to chug around after a while. Making phone calls on it, you might feel a little silly, so you might put a Bluetooth in. But those phones are ahead of their time, in my opinion. The MediaPad X1 and the MediaPad X2, totally ahead of their time. I bought the MediaPad X1 when it launched, and I actually still have it. It's actually a premium phone / tablet, and I get 3G or 4G in the U.S. and I'm happy with it. When I do use it, I do fire it up. It's a super thin. I mean, it's these devices are 7.2 millimeters in thickness, so they're very thin. And even though they're 239 grams, they're not as heavy as one would think. They have IPS displays. They're 1080p. They're 1200 by 1920. So I guess a little above 1080p. They're 7 inches. So they're huge, but it's totally doable. Totally doable. So in buying smartphones today, when people go big in the U.S., I think that ZTE has capitalized on that, and I don't see them slowing down. I don't see ZTE slowing down from making. Let's just kind of look at it. Look at what ZTE is bringing out right now. All their phones are huge, and all the phones don't cost a lot. They don't cost a lot. You got the Max XL, the Blade X Max, the Z Max Pro. For some of the phones that are in the U.S. that are releasing, they've got some big screen phones that are under $150. That is unheard of, man. That's just crazy. How can they do it? It doesn't cost. Obviously, it doesn't cost them a lot of money to manufacture these devices. But I can guarantee you they're probably capitalizing on it for sure. Don't think that ZTE, just because they're only releasing prepaid phones and they're selling them for $100, that they're not making a profit. it's just they're making some they're capitalizing where they should be, which is the prepaid market. They've got the Blade X Max. They just released a phone on AT&T. The Blade Spark. That's it. They got the Blade Spark. They have another one called the Blade Avid. It's a 5.5-inch HD display. The one on the Blade X, the Blade Spark is a 5.5-inch display. The Blade XL is a 6-inch display. 3990 battery. Why not just 4,000? Who knows? But you've got the Z-Max Grand LTE, which is 5.5. You got the Z-Max Champ LTE. Some of you guys probably never even heard of that. That's 5.5. Man, the list goes on. They're capitalizing on screen size. They're capitalizing on screen size, and they're capitalizing in the prepaid market, which is a smart move. It's a smart move. Here's one that you probably never heard of. You might have ZTE Blade Max 3. It's on US Cellular. That's another big screen phone that they have. It has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. So it's kind of like a combination, and it's got a 6-inch screen too. It's kind of like a combination of the Z-Max Pro, the Blade Z-Max Pro, the Z-Max Pro and the Blade V8 Pro. It's because it's got dual cameras on the back. It's massive. It's on US Cellular, and how much does it cost? $120. You just you just can't beat these prices. I think ZTE is capitalizing big time where they should, and I don't fault them for it. They may be bringing out phones that are pretty much the same or a combination of their current devices, but they're doing it the right way. They're spreading it amongst the carriers, and carrier devices, believe it or not, for OEMs, that's a pretty good way to go. They've got the Z-Max Pro. They've got the Grand X Max 2. They've got a bunch of phones. The ZTE Imperial Max. All these different phones follow the same baseline of 5.5 to 6 inches, and cost less than $150. Wouldn't you continue to bring out all these products, give it a little bit of different body, and then keep the great screen, change the processor, do something to where consumers on different carriers are getting some bang for buck. So big phones, yeah, we need big phones. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have the option to switch to a big phone. I don't know how I would handle that. Because I have big hands, and even people with, now that's an excuse today, I guess, but even people with big hands, sometimes we get overwhelmed with a big phone because we all want that one-hand use every now and then. But size doesn't really matter too much anymore, because I see more women with big phones, 6 inches and stuff like that. I see more women like that than nowadays than men, because again, the advantage is women have a purse. They can carry a purse or some kind of satchel or bag or something. And men, you could carry your backpack too, but most men don't keep their phone in their backpack. You wanted to quick access, and you wanted to, you just want to be able to get to it real fast. So, big phones, yeah, love them. I hope they stay around. I hope OEMs like ZTE and Xiaomi and Sony, especially Sony, I hope Sony drops the prices on their devices, and then I hope they get to the point where they're still bringing these premium because we know it can be done. Sony is using the MediaTek processors, and ZTE are using Snapdragon processors. So, I used to crap all over MediaTek processors. I was so frustrated with them. However, MediaTek processors, in my experience, it depends on the operating system and how well the company has the device and hardware and everything's matched up together and optimized. Because the one Sony phone that I have definitely has fantastic battery and it performs well, and it only has a 2,700 milliamp hour battery. So what is Sony doing right? So to bring us this huge 6-inch screen phone with a small battery. They're doing something right. So I just want to chat with you guys. It's been about 45 minutes. Wow. I just want to chat with you guys and, hey, I missed Tuesday's podcast. What do you think about big phones? Do you have all sizes? Do you have a really small phone? Do you have a flip phone? I personally have a bag of different kinds of phones. But 6-inch phones, man, big screen phones, that is where I think I really enjoy. I think I enjoy them. When I'm not using one, I kind of miss it. I miss it. When I'm not using a phone that's 6 inches, and the reason being is I might want to watch a movie real quick or something. Or I might want to do something, typing and a long email, just anything that will require me to have the real estate. That's one of the most important things, the real estate for me. I think that's what it is. I think that's what it is. So it's your man Jay Will. Totally spurred a moment. I just said this was a Wednesday Workday podcast. Maybe I'll incorporate this into the podcast in the future. But I missed Tuesday's podcast. I wanted to bring you guys a topic of choice of my own, and I just was playing with one of my phones that's huge, and I was thinking, man, this is a beautiful, beautiful piece of hardware here, and it's got a big screen. And I'm using a phone that's let me just be honest for a second here. I'm using a device that's coming out pretty quickly. It'll be out soon, and it's got a big screen on it, and I think you guys will enjoy it. So I think you guys will really enjoy this hardware. So it's your man Jay Will. Thanks for joining me in another podcast. Like I said, I'll incorporate some kind of Wednesday Workday podcast where I know you guys are at work and you put your headphones in and you just listen. And comment if you can. But this will go up to the YouTube. Well, it's already on the YouTube channel if you're listening to it on YouTube. But I plan on setting everything over there as well. And I'll see you guys in the next podcast. Hopefully I won't miss Tuesday's podcast again. Actually, I think I will. Actually, let me tell you, I won't be doing Tuesday's podcast. I'll be traveling, I think, next Tuesday. So probably won't be any Monday's news either because I'll be traveling. So I don't know. It's your man Jay Will. Thanks for joining me on another podcast. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.